Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a masterclass on one of the most exciting yet deeply challenging things you can do in life, turning your absolute wildest ideas into concrete reality. We're going to be unpacking the proven frameworks of Kim Perell. She's an entrepreneur who has, quite frankly, mastered the art of execution. So if you've ever had a brilliant idea, but just kind of stalled out on how to actually make it happen, you are in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, the execution problem. Second, we'll meet Kim Perell. Third, the 5 traits of execution. Then we'll cover the life audit, your one-year plan, and finally, taking action today.
Part 1. The execution problem. I want to kick things off by challenging a pretty common assumption. When you think about why businesses fail, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Maybe bad timing, running out of cash, or just a totally terrible product idea? Well, while those definitely play a part, the real issue is way more foundational. Look at this number, 90%. That is, honestly, it's staggering. According to Harvard Business School professors, 9 out of 10 business strategies completely die due to inferior execution. Literally 9 out of 10. It just goes to show you a hard truth. Ideas are cheap. Having a stroke of genius is just the starting line. Your actual ability to execute is what determines your commercial success. Which brings us to this absolutely perfect quote from Kim Perell herself. Vision without action is just a dream. I mean, let that sink in for a second. Passive dreaming feels good, right? It's safe. But it simply does not build businesses. Active doing, getting your hands dirty, is exactly what separates the successful 1% from the 90% who fail. You just can't let your life pass by on default. Part 2. Meet Kim Perell. So you might be wondering, who exactly is this person telling us to wake up and get to work? Well, before we adopt anyone's framework, we need to know they actually have the chops to back it up. And wow, our source author's resume is off the charts. Kim Perell is currently the founder and CEO of 100.co. Before that, she built a global marketing tech company called Amobi and sold it to Singtel for a massive $321 million. Yeah, million. But she didn't just stop there. She pivoted into becoming a powerhouse angel investor, backing over 100 startups. She focuses heavily on AI, consumer packaged goods, and women-led early-stage tech. The big takeaway here? She is not just some theorist writing from the sidelines. She's a real-world practitioner who has personally generated hundreds of millions of dollars. And luckily for us, she took all that hard-won, in-the-trenches operational experience and investment savvy and crystallized it into a best-selling book, The Execution Factor. She wrote this with one specific goal: to help entrepreneurs turn their ideas into successful ventures by mastering the single definitive skill that drives success, which is execution. Section 3. The 5 traits of execution. Now, we're getting into the core mindset required for success, pulling straight from the pages of her book. We really want to understand what makes a successful executor tick. Perell outlines 5 foundational traits: vision, passion, action, resilience, and relationships. Now, don't look at these as optional add-ons. These are the absolute non-negotiable tools in any successful entrepreneur's toolbox. Let's break each one down. First up, we have vision. Think of this as your entrepreneurial North Star. To put this into perspective, CB Insights found that 42% of startups fail simply because there's absolutely zero market need for their vision. That's wild, right? You have to ground your vision in practical reality. You need to develop a really sharp commercial sense. If you aren't hyper-aware of how your idea actually turns a profit, that grand vision of yours is going to stay completely unfulfilled. Next, we've got passion. This is the fuel that keeps you moving forward. Here's a really interesting tidbit. The English word passion actually comes from a Latin root meaning suffering. Pretty intense. But at its core, passion is exactly what sustains an entrepreneur through the brutal challenges and, let's be honest, the suffering that inevitably comes up. It gives you a deep emotional connection that not only keeps you going, but translates into this infectious energy that inspires your team, your supporters, and your investors. Then comes action. This is the main engine, the central hub where everything else connects. Look, you can have a world-changing vision and endless passion, but without action, execution is fundamentally impossible. And Perell's advice here is actually super freeing. She says, just get going, because there is literally no wrong way to start. Yes, taking that very first step to get your dream off a piece of paper and into the real world is terrifying, but it is absolutely crucial. Trait number 4 is resilience. Unless you live a totally charmed life, you are going to get knocked off your feet. It's just a fact. Perell notes that successful entrepreneurs have to be what she calls zigzag experts. If you must zig, you zig. If you gotta zag, you zag. You have to cultivate a growth mindset where you view even the absolute worst setbacks not as final failures. Actually, scratch that. View them as highly valuable learning opportunities that actively propel you forward. And finally, relationships. This is the essential support network for your dreams. The cold, hard truth? You can't do this alone. You need objective analysis from people you genuinely trust, and you need an environment that pushes you forward rather than dragging you backward, which actually perfectly sets up the next major framework from Perell. Section 4, the life audit. Okay, this is where things get highly practical, and I want to ask you a direct question right now as you watch this. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Your environment matters so much to your ability to execute. And this brilliantly illustrates Perell's exercise for it. It's simple but incredibly powerful. Take a second and list the 5 people you spend the most time with. Put a big plus sign next to the ones who elevate you and build your momentum. Then put a minus sign next to anyone who quietly holds you back or just completely drains your energy. To execute on your vision, you literally have to audit your environment. Choose to spend way more time with the pluses and set some firm boundaries with the minuses. Part 5, your 1-year plan. All right, now that we've audited our environment, it's time to take all this theory and put it into immediate practice. We're going to look at the tactical methodology from Perell's 1-year success plan. She designed this framework as a companion to her USA Today #1 bestseller in business and economics, Mistakes That Made Me a Millionaire. So this isn't just a basic daily planner where you jot down your grocery list. It's a hardcore tactical tool designed to help you take whatever is holding you back and use it as fuel for a highly actionable planning phase. I absolutely love this quote from the workbook. It says, "You don't need a 10-year plan. You need a 1-year decision." Boom. I mean, how often do we completely paralyze ourselves trying to map out the next decade of our lives, stressing over every single hypothetical obstacle? True transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens one aligned action at a time, over a much more focused and manageable time frame. To actually execute this, Perell uses a backward planning technique. It's brilliant. You start all the way at month 12 with your massive end goal vision, say successfully launching an online business. Then you work backward. What's the second to last milestone you need to hit in month 11 to get there? What about month 9? Month 6? By the time you trace it all the way down to month 1, your tasks are incredibly simple and actionable. We're talking establishing basic business fundamentals, like brainstorming names, Googling how to set up an LLC, or just grabbing a coffee for an informational interview. Working backward takes this massive, daunting vision and makes it feel totally achievable. Section 6, taking action today. So, the crucial point is, how do we apply all of this right this second? We need to bring all these concepts together for one final push so you can start executing. Let's recap the key, actionable takeaways from Kim Perell's masterclass. Number 1, identify your specific vision and make absolutely sure it makes real commercial sense. Number 2, assign strict deadlines to every milestone. Why? Because a goal without a deadline is literally just a daydream. Number 3, focus on establishing those basic business fundamentals in that critical first month. And finally, remember that the difference between the people who succeed and the people who don't isn't inherent talent or sheer luck, it's perseverance. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. I want you to really mull this over, write it down, and commit to it. Look at the date today. Got it? Okay, now tell me, 1 year from today, what will you have built? That business or that massive goal you've been dreaming of is waiting for you on the exact opposite side of action. Not someday, today. Thank you so much for learning with me, and I seriously cannot wait to see what you execute on.